Hi guys, today Em and I are going to do a presentation on Madonna and Child with Two Angels. Before we get into this piece, we're going to go over a few vocab words that are important to understand for Renaissance painting, just so everything makes more sense as we start breaking things down. The first one is tempera. This is basically a fast drying paint that was made with egg yolk, and it lets artists make super fine details. Most painters used this before oil painting became the big thing. Then we have humanism, which is a huge idea during the Renaissance. Humanism is all about focusing on real people, real emotion, and making religious figures look more natural and relatable instead of stiff or symbolic. Next is linear perspective, which is when the artist uses lines to guide your eye and creates the illusion of space. You'll see this in the background window and how the room feels like it has depth. Connected to that is an atmospheric perspective, which is when things in the distance look softer and lighter so it feels realistic. A flattened halo is another Renaissance shift. Instead of a big glowing gold circles floating above holy figures, the halo becomes almost like a thin outline. It's still there, but it doesn't take over the painting. Madonna is just a formal art term for the Virgin Mary. So when you hear Madonna and Child, it literally just means Mary and Jesus. And finally, there's a patronage, which basically means who paid for the artwork. Patrons had a ton of influence on how paintings turned out, since artists often shaped their style based on what their patrons wanted. Okay, so this piece is called Madonna and Child with Two Angels, as said before, and it was made around 1465 by Fra Filippo Lippi, who's one of the most important painters in the early Italian Renaissance. Lippi was known for giving religious scenes this really soft, elegant, and human feeling, which was totally new compared to the older medieval style. It's painted in tempera on wood, which was still the main medium at the time. Since tempera dries quickly, it helped Lippi create those super clean lines and delicate features he's known for. This piece sits right in the middle of the Renaissance push toward naturalism, meaning artists were starting to care a lot more about realistic faces, realistic bodies, and emotional expressions. The form of this painting is really where you see Lippi shine. Everything looks soft and natural, from the skin to the hair to the fabric. The figures don't look flat. They have dimension because Lippi uses gentle shading and super controlled lines to build volume. The composition is organized in a triangle, which helps guide your eye and makes the scene feel balanced. That triangular setup becomes one of the most incredible trademarks of Renaissance painting. The landscape behind them uses atmospheric perspective, meaning the colors get lighter and hazier as they move into the distance, which helps the painting feel deeper and more realistic. Inside the room, Lippi uses linear perspective to structure the window and space behind Mary, making it feel like an actual three-dimensional setting. The color palette is really soft, not too dramatic or bold, which creates a calm, peaceful mood, and the facial expressions are super realistic. The angel in the front even has this little smile, although he's in on something, which brings a level of personality that medieval art never showed. Since Lippi is working in tempera, his whole technique is based on layering. Tempera dries almost instantly, so he has to make really small, careful strokes. That's why the details, especially in the hair, the wings, and the transparent veil Mary wears, look so sharp and delicate. He builds the skin tone slowly, using thin layers to get that soft, glowing effect that feels almost lifelike. The drapery also shows how controlled his brushwork is. Every fold looks intentional and clean, which gives the painting a really elegant look. One of the coolest things he does is the halo. Instead of the big, bright gold halo that medieval artists use, Lippi paints a really subtle, flattened halo that barely stands out at first glance. It shows how Renaissance artists were trying to make holy figures look more grounded, like they actually exist in the same reality as if the viewer. In this scene, we have the Virgin Mary, the Christ child, and two angels. But instead of being serious and formal, the whole moment feels really human. The Christ child leans forward like a real toddler trying to reach his mom, and Mary's expression isn't exaggerated. It's soft and thoughtful, like a real mother watching her child. The angels are especially interesting. The one in the front is smiling directly at us, which connects the viewer to the painting and makes the whole scene feel less distant. It's almost like the angel is pulling us into the moment. The window behind them opens up into a peaceful landscape, which not only makes the space feel deeper, but also places the holy figures in a real, natural world instead of some heavenly, symbolic backdrop. That connection between the divine and the everyday is a big theme of Renaissance art. This painting was made in Florence, which was one of the main centers of Renaissance art and thinking. During this time, artists were really focused on humanism, meaning they want to show real human emotion and natural beauty, even in religious scenes. Instead of making Mary and Jesus look distant or untouchable, artists like Lippi made them feel relatable and human so viewers could connect with them on a deeper level. That emotional accessibility was really important for people using these works in personal prayer. This piece was probably made for private devotion, meaning it would have been placed in someone's home instead of a church. That's why it feels so intimate. It was meant to be looked at up close in a quiet, personal setting. Lippi also worked around the Medici family, who supported tons of artists and encouraged all the innovations we now associate with the Renaissance. Their influence pushed painters to experience more with naturalism, perspective, and emotion, all of which show up clearly in this piece.
The intended purpose of this painting was personal devotion. Instead of being displayed in a church, it was created for a wealthy patron's home. The idea was that the viewer could pray and reflect while looking at a gentle, relatable image of Mary and Jesus. Renaissance humanism emphasized connecting the divine with human experience, and this painting does that by showing Mary not as a distant queen, but as a tender mother. The intimate mood helped viewers build a personal relationship with the sacred figures during the daily prayer. One major reason this painting is significant is its Renaissance innovations. Lippi uses soft modeling to create natural skin and lifelike bodies. The window behind Mary gives us a landscape with atmospheric depth, making the space feel real. Jesus looks like an actual toddler, not the stiff miniature adult we see in medieval art. The angels look playful, almost mischievous, which brings a sense of movement and life into the painting. All of this shows the Renaissance interest in realism, perspective, and emotional expression. Even though Lippi brings in new Renaissance realism, he doesn't abandon tradition. Mary is shown in blue, a color associated with purity and spiritual importance since the Middle Ages. The halos are very faint, but they're still there, reminding the viewers of the figure's holiness. The angels act as intermediaries between heaven and earth, consistent with earlier Christian imagery. Their overall composition is balanced and symmetrical, keeping a sense of order, so the painting mixes the traditional iconography of Madonna and child images with new Renaissance naturalism. The central themes of this piece include maternal love, tenderness, and the blending of human and divine experience. Lippi shows Mary and Jesus interacting in a way that feels very natural and emotional. This reflects Renaissance humanism, the belief that showing sacred figures with human qualities bring people closer to them spiritually. Beauty also plays a major role. Renaissance artists believed that creating visually beautiful scenes could inspire devotion. The innocence of the Christ child and the purity of Mary combine to create a peaceful, spiritually uplifting mood. When we compare this to the Byzantine icon Virgin and Child between Saints Theodore and George, the difference reflects a huge stylistic shift. The Byzantine image is flat, frontal, and iconic, meant to show holy figures as distant and uncharging. There's almost no emotion, everything is symbolic. Lippi's painting is full of depth, shading, and human emotion. Mary and Jesus are shown interacting naturally, and the angels shows personality. The shift from a gold background to a natural landscape represents the Renaissance move toward realism and the belief that the divine can be shown in a human, relatable way.